Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you a DIY on how to work on your own headlights and restore them from home. As you can see in these pictures, these headlights are kind of oxidized. There's a bit of oxidation on them. They're turning yellow. Now, this isn't so bad. You'll find some headlights that are in a lot worse condition than this. But this is my first attempt at restoring headlights, and so I figured I would show you the process. That way you can do it yourself from home when you want to. So just getting into this right now, I'm hitting the lights with 800 grit, just lightly sanding them with 800 grit. I wouldn't recommend going lower than 800 because then you'll have really coarse scratches in the lights, and you just make a lot more work for yourself. So 800 grit is what I would recommend starting at. Pre-soak the sandpaper before you start rubbing away. Um, Give it some time in some water to sit and kind of get soft. And what I'm using is just liquid soap in a bottle, diluted liquid soap in a bottle, to sand down the oxidation, just get all that discolor off the lights while also cleaning it. You can use just plain water, but I like to use liquid soap in the water because it cleans the lights as well, just gets off all the oil and grease. Yeah, so moving forward, what's going on is I'm just going to sand down these lights. This is going to take a while. I would recommend taking some time on this. You don't want to rush. You want to take your time, make sure you get all the oxidation off, all the yellowing. If you see the first pictures, you could see the yellow hue, and in this video you can already see that a lot of that yellowing is gone. As you do this, you'll actually see the yellow color, which is oxidation, just kind of come off. Notice the masking tape on the grill. I would recommend masking off all the areas around the headlight to avoid scratching the body of the car. Otherwise, you just create more work for yourself. Now, I know I'm saying this and I haven't taped off the fender, but that's just because I'm being extra careful as I go around the headlight, making sure not to touch the fender. But if you're new at this, I would recommend that you tape everything off so that you don't end up scratching the body of the car. So yeah, just going to probably fast forward on the sanding for a while because this does take a bit of time. So just watch closely and we'll come back to this and I'll explain more. So yeah, one thing I want to mention is as you're doing this, you want to go around every edge of the light, even the places that you're probably not going to see, that might be hidden, like the corners and the gaps between the grill and the bonnet. You want to really get into every corner. And as you're sanding, I know I'm kind of going in every direction, but this is just to make sure I get off all that oxidation. But for the most part, you want to do directional sanding, which is sanding one way. So that's preferably left to right as opposed to up down. Do stay clear of sanding rotationally, which is basically going in circles, because those are going to leave some swirls and scratches that we will definitely see later. So the rule of thumb, just go directionally, left to right. Once in a while you can do up and down movements just to really clear out any oxidation and also get into some tough to reach spots, like in the corner, like I'm doing right now. Left to right might be a bit tricky because then you might go over and scratch up the grill. But even after the up and down, still go left to right to change the direction of those scratches. So just something to note. Now, as you do this, I want to make it clear, it's going to get a lot worse. You're going to see a lot more hazing. As much as the light starts to clear over, it's going to haze. So what I mean by this is you're going to just get a lot of scratching, and if you're new to this, you're going to panic and think, oh crap, I just made it worse, I've ruined my lights. But no. um, I'll use an analogy. What I think is a great analogy is just like God works. Sometimes things get worse or seem to be getting worse just before they get better. And so the same could be applied here is you look like you're making the lights worse by scratching them up and making them blurry. But trust me, when you're done with this, oh, there I go to get more water. Uh, when you're done with this, you're going to be amazed at the results. So just make sure you follow everything step by step. Um, Wash the lights before you do anything, before you start sanding. Don't just start sanding away. Make sure to clean the lights in case there are any dead bugs on it, in case there's any sand, because if you have any sand on the lights and you start sanding, you're going to make your life worse. You're going to scratch the lights. So you want to clean them, make sure there's nothing on them, and then, like I said, pre-soak 800 grit sandpaper. Leave it in water for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then just sand away with some uh, liquid soap in a bottle, and diluted liquid soap in a bottle. And even when you're sanding, you want to sand lightly. Don't put so much pressure, because you will create very deep scratches. You just kind of want to rub away, and don't sand it violently because you want to finish soon. Take your time. um, this can probably take a few 30 minutes to an hour, so take your time. If you want some good results, don't rush the process. Okay, so from this angle you can kind of see the difference. The corner still has some oxidation in it, so you can see the yellowing, that yellow effect, and you can see how the rest of the light is pretty clear. Besides the hazing and the scratching, it's pretty clear. Now, I'll admit I might have, taken a lot more time than needed on sanding these lights. If you're anything, if you're, you know, sort of like me and you have a bit of OCD, um, you're going to keep sanding away at this thing. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. You don't have to overdo it. Once the oxidation is gone and the lights are pretty clear, that's pretty much enough. But I like to be thorough. I want to make sure that I haven't left any oxidation on these lights, and it's really clear. Because if you leave any coloring on it, if it's not perfect, and you go to clear coat these lights later on, you're going to see that it's going to stand out, and then you have to start all over again, and you've just made things worse because you have to take off the clear coat that you just laid, and then still take off the oxidation. Now, if you pay close attention, you can see how that yellow color is coming off. What you see there, that's not the liquid soap, that's the oxidation. That's the discoloration coming off. So the lights are starting to clear over, and it's an amazing feeling to just watch that come off and see how the lights come back to their former glory. So yeah, just as I said, if you're new to this, I'm familiar with sanding things, so I know how to stay within the lines. But if you're new to this, you definitely want to tape off the edges. For example, that fender, you'd want to tape those edges off. That way, if you happen to cross over that with the sandpaper, you don't scratch up the paint, and you stay well within the lines. The masking tape just kind of gives you a border. That way you know where to stop, and in case you mess up and go past that border, you're safe. You haven't scratched up the paint. So you can clearly see there's a night and day difference right now compared to what this section started out like. Okay, so Fast forward to this, I've switched to 1500 grit sandpaper, which is a very fine, coarse sandpaper. It's more fine than 800. Now, just for the sake of this video, the only reason I've switched to 1500, actually two reasons, is this. If at all you're looking to do this yourself and you don't have access to a compressor, or you don't know how to spray, and you're just looking for the easiest and fastest way to restore your lights, you would go from 800 grit to 1500 to 2000 grit, and if possible to 3000 grit sandpaper. Basically, eliminating all the rough scratches. If you can see, the 1500 kind of, it takes out those scratches left from the 800 grit, and if you notice, the light is clearing up even more. And so if you were to go to 2000 grit sandpaper, it's the clearness comes out even more. You see less scratching, and then what you do after this is you'd wash the lights, rinse them off, get all the soapy water off them, let them dry, and then you would get some rubbing compound, here commonly like a T-cut or just any other rubbing compound, and you would begin to buff the lights either using a machine or by hand. And now I'm not going to do this in this video. What I'm going for is I'm going to clear coat over these later on, because the clear coat just gives a long-lasting protection, whereas if you buff and wax the moment you go to wash your car with any kind of soap, that wax will come off eventually, and so your lights will oxidize a lot faster than if you clear coat them and give them that UV protection. So you can see how the lights are getting a lot more clearer, especially that section that has the indicator, because the 1500 grit is just taking out all those scratch marks left by the 800 grit. So if you don't have access to a compressor and know how to spray clear coat, you would do this followed by 2000 grit, followed by 3000 grit if possible. If you don't have 3000 grit, it's fine as well, but if you do have access to 3000 grit, the better. And then you just repeat the process, really sand it down, get out all this rough scratching, and then you would buff these lights out with some rubbing compound, and then polish them, and that will still restore the lights. They'll look good as new, but you will not have a long-lasting protection. It's not going to last as long as if you used clear coat. Now, I also want to mention that as you do this, you might, if every light is different, but you might notice certain cracks and deep scratches in the light, in the plastic itself. Now, there's honestly nothing you can do to take those out. That's just from the lights sitting in the sun over long periods of time, and it forms cracks within the plastic, and no amount of sanding is going to take those out. So don't stress, don't think that you're not doing it right. No, those deep scratches, those cracks, that's just the plastic that's just stress on the plastic from sitting out in the sun in immense heat for so long. So you're not going to take those out, but the light will still work. You'll still have better visibility, and it will still look as good as new. So just want to make a mention of that. That way you don't think you're doing it wrong. Now, the second reason I'm using 1500 grit here is, again, because of my little OCD. I do this to make sure that if at all there's been any oxidation that the 1800 grit did not take out, because maybe the grit in the sandpaper is too fine, is too rough, too coarse, and the grit just can't take it out. The 1500, being a finer grit, will kind of really get deeper and sand and just kind of like rub it out. And so it's just for me to make sure that I'm really taking off all that oxidation. And after this, I will come back again with 800 grit and sand over with 800 grit. Why I'm doing this is because the 800 grit creates a nice surface for the clear coat to bond, whereas the 1000 grit it leaves it a bit too fine, and so the clear coat might not stick very well. So what you're doing is you're creating mechanical adhesion, which is you're giving tiny scratches for the clear coat to sink into and bind. So you can see how clear the 1500 grit has turned these headlights. I mean, you can see the right side, which if you're looking at it from this video is the left side. You can see that hasn't been sanded. Here you can see there's a clear night and day difference. On the left you have the headlight that hasn't been restored, and right here you have the one that we've just sanded, and you can see how it's already looking close to perfect. So now I'm going back to the 800 grit, like I said, to scratch it up. That way my clear coat has a nice surface to bond to. Okay, so we're onto the right side of the car, which in this video is the left hand side. And for this, we're just going to repeat the process. Again, you can see what those lights looked like before. Here, I'm just washing it down with my hand, make sure there's no dirt on the lights. And then I hit it with the 800, and then I will hit it with the 1500 to really make sure all the oxidation is off, and then back with the 800, and then we'll get close, we'll get ready to clear. So just to be clear, this is what the lights will look like when they dry, so don't be afraid. Okay, so on to painting. You can see how the headlights look. Now don't mind the black, I just added that because I wanted to change the look of the headlights, but you don't have to do this. Now, if you're going to do, for those of you going to do clear coat, you need to tape up every inch around the headlight. So in this case, the fender, the bumper, the grille, and just prop up the bonnet. That way you don't have any overspray getting onto the bonnet and onto the windshield. And when you're done sanding, wash these headlights down, get them cleaned, rinse them off, make sure there's no soap on them. And preferably, if you have access to a garage, do this indoors. That way you don't have any debris fall onto the lights or bugs getting stuck on the clear. Or if you're unlucky, it could start raining just before you finish clear coating. So if you have the chance to, do this indoors. If you don't, just make sure your surroundings are really clean. There's no dust blowing around. You don't want to do clear coat outside on a windy day. So just a few things to keep in mind. So a few things to note as you're going to lay clear. Like I said, make sure your lights are clean. If you haven't done clear coat before, make sure you practice this elsewhere, because if you mess up on the lights, then you have to start from scratch. Get yourself a tack rag, which is what I have in my hands right now, just to take off any dust or any debris that might be stuck onto the lights. You don't need to rub in, just lightly wipe away. Test your gun, make sure everything's flowing nicely. Make sure you have cleaned the spray gun in case it's a gun that's used for doing different color. Otherwise you might have black shoot out onto the clear, and once that happens you just need to stop and start all over again. First coat, very light, very light coat. Don't worry if you don't get it, if you don't hit every corner of the light. This is just our tack coat, so very light coat, just here and there, and you give it about usually I like to give it about 5 to 10 minutes to dry. This gives it a nice sticky texture. That way when you come in with the second coat, you have a nice sticky coat for the second coat to bind to. If you go in heavy on the first coat, then you're going to have runs, the paint's not going to stick, and it's just going to make a mess of things. So rule of thumb when doing any kind of coat, even with color, first coat very light, give it some what we call flash off time, which is 5 to 10 minutes to flash. A way you can tell if it's flashed is your surroundings. Let's say, for example, the places that I've masked off the paper, you can go and tap around the surroundings where the clear coat has landed, and if it's sticky, if you tap onto the edges and it sticks to your finger and it's stringy, that's what you're looking for. So you're gonna see me do this real quick. You'll see me kind of tapping onto the paper just to see if it's tacky enough or if I need to let it dry a little bit more. While you do this, just move around, make sure no bugs get stuck to the clear coat. Make sure nothing falls on it, because again, if anything lands on the clear, you need to stop, let that clear dry, sand it off and start again. Otherwise, you're not going to have good results. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just checking to see how tacky the first coat of clear is. I'm not touching the lights, I'm just touching the masking tape, just really close to the lights where some clear coat landed. What you're looking for is it to just kind of be sticky and not smudge when you go to touch it, but it wants to stick to your finger, and when you pull your finger away, it has a bit of a stringy feel, where it's almost like holding onto masking tape and it wants to stick to your hand. So that's what you want. Again, you don't want it to over dry. If it dries too much, then the second coat is not going to stick. So it's flashed off the way I like it. So now I've come in and laid the second coat, and you can already see the difference. Those lights have just come back to former glory. I've gone off to do the second side. 2 coats is more than enough. You can probably do 3 if you want, but for this, 2 coats is enough. So first coat is a nice light coat, tacky coat. Then the second coat, come in, lay a heavy, what's called the wet coat. And in this coat, you get all the edges, you get the sides, the top, the bottom, full coverage of the lights. And then give it about 2 to 3 hours to dry. If possible, even longer. The longer it dries, the better. And if you do this right and you don't have any orange peel, then you're good. Once it dries, you're good. There's nothing else you need to do. If in any case you do have orange peel, then give it at least 6 to 8 hours drying time, and then come sand it with 1500 grit sandpaper and 2500 grit till everything is nice and smooth, and then buff it out. Now I know I previously said if you just buff it, it will oxidize faster, but that is if you don't apply a coat of clear. If you do apply a clear coat, then you still have the same results. You're just taking out the orange peel and the waviness in the clear coat. But in this case, the clear coat laid nice. It's a nice wet finish, smooth. There's no orange peel, so I'm happy with the way this turned out. And for those of you who might be afraid and say, "Oh, I'm afraid because I'm going to mess this up," you have experience. This is the first time I've ever done this. I've watched videos, I've seen other people do this, and I never tried because I was afraid, but this time I said I need to try it. So you can see how the finish has come out. It's come out really nice. It's smooth, and this is what you're going for. So if you think that because you have no experience you can't pull this off, I'm here to tell you that with a bit of practice you can definitely do this. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's a great help. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button in case you want to follow my page and see the work that I do.